did a video earlier this year about AI trying to give me like the top clinics in Turkey. It certainly had some flaws and resources that you and me would probably consider deceiving.
Behind the scenes, and I know this because I was approached by some of these people to essentially collect. I see it as like a hair mafia.
Where do most people go? Turkey. Turkey is like the mecca of hair restoration. Sometimes if it's great for the influencers, it's because he can also get a better treat. When you come there as a usual, guy, it will not be the same. People definitely need to take a step back and just don't do the rush decision making. It's gonna be tricky. It's a Russian roulette. It may be a total disaster.
All right, Matt. So welcome and thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Thanks for the invite and glad to be here, New York City. Amazing times and glad to share this table with you and see what you have. Absolutely.
And you visited last Friday for a case that we had in the clinic, and it was great having you. It's like we've known each other virtually for a number of years, but to meet you there was special, and to have you see kind of how we do things was really cool, because a lot of it, we don't get to show everyone online. We show bits and pieces, but you kind of got the behind the scenes of everything. And what I wanted to ask you is this, like, when you were there, some of my staff, they knew someone was coming, but didn't maybe give them all the details on who you are and what you do. And they were asking me out later. They're like, "Oh, is he a doctor? Like, what does he do?" And I explained it to them, but I want to get like your take on like when someone asks you kind of like what you do, because on one hand we're sort of both YouTubers, if you will, but and we're in the hair restoration space, but we approach it, I guess, from different angles. So give me like in your words, sort of like what you do, like and also like the business model, of your practice.
Yeah, so whenever I have to write it somewhere on a form, like what's your occupation, and I always decide between a consultant, sometimes I write YouTuber as well. I don't care, I just tick it and then go. I would say consultant as an occupation, but let me describe you what it exactly means in this hair restoration world. So what I do is pretty much help kind of the patient, the consumer who's interested in getting his hair back via hair restoration, and bridge him with the truth, what actually works and what doesn't. And that's what I also share with my videos. I share steps that lead to a successful hair transplant, and I share case studies of clients and different examples of that. And then on the other hand, I share, unfortunately, steps that run to failure and when people mess up and make some mistakes. And I like to show this in an open way and then let people decide for themselves. And of course, at the same time, after being in this industry for, since 2017, I realized this is not just a medical field, but there's also a business aspect to it. And naturally, many patients get caught somewhere in between, and they get kind of blurred and blinded by many of the marketing tactics, many deceptive viewpoints that are being portrayed online with the rise of social media, internet, and whatnot. And what I like to do is kind of point them towards the truth based on visiting dozens and dozens of clinics, speaking to 2,000 plus patients myself, and being a hair restoration patient myself too. And I like to show this to them from my point of view. And also, at the same time, I like to elevate the good clinics, the top clinics, the excellence of the industry, and highlight it in my videos, and to show this as well, and help them also be seen, because I do believe that many physicians, you included, like, they care about this industry, they want to do great work, they are ethical, and the results speak for themselves. So I like to showcase this on my channels and social media too, for the world to see. And this is pretty much what I like to kind of help both things and give more transparency and more clarity to this space for the consumer that is starting out. He's confused what to do and where to go. And essentially, this profession for me is like, how I see it is like, if I can make only a slightest difference in the way how how people are experiencing hair restoration, and I think this is a profession worth doing.
That's great. Yeah, no, thanks for that summary. So, like, walk me through. So, like, if a client reaches out to you because they've seen your stuff online and they're looking for advice, are they generally sort of is it like a flat rate for them, or do they kind of pay per just like a consultation session? And then if they want further advice, or kind of like how does that work, like on the financial front?
Yeah, so I offer consultations that are like one-time consultations, but I also have a package offer for multiple consultations with extra online support. So I have like two different ways how people can get in touch with me and use my service. And during the consultation, I usually get clients who are new to this, but also maybe 30% who have done previous hair transplants and they need another one, or they need to fix a bad surgery. But sometimes it's just like the other client you had, just improving good surgeries before and just making it a bit better. So they book a session with me and we discuss the situation, my take on what I would be doing. Naturally, I have done also some mistakes, learned from them, and I did corrections. I did like removals, surgical, fix of my hairline. So I know if he wants to do the surgical fix, it's going to be different than to do something more lighter with the laser removal. And there are different approaches that I can explain and then discuss with him the best fits that I think, after my research and after my visits with different doctors and talking to thousands of patients over the years, geographically, if he says, I want to stay in the US, then we just focus on the US clinics. If he says, I'm open to fly overseas, we'll help him out. If he says, my budget is 5 to 10,000, then so be it. And of course, if the budget is very low, I also write it in my website. Like I'll probably not be the best guy to help you, because if the budget is very low, I don't feel like I'm so good at picking those sub $3,000 clinics in Turkey. Like it's a Russian roulette, man. Like it's like I've been to many of them. I've been to a dozen of them, but it's very hard to recommend somebody, because I imagine it's me on the other side 8 years ago, who were in this situation, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't probably go there. So I cannot tell you. So I have definitely like pre-selected clinics. Like if you look at websites like Hair Restoration Network, and there are like some other websites that they have like pre-selected, maybe a list of verified doctors that they like to recommend. So I have something like that, and from this like database, I like to kind of use to point my clients to different clinics. But what I often do is like I offer maybe maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 recommendations, so the client can get quotes, he can get offers, he can see how he sits with the clinic, communication-wise and mentally, if they're on the same level. And if it matches, sometimes it's one out of these 4 that it's really like good fit. And then he goes there, he decides for this, and then he shares with me some more info throughout this whole time. And then we analyze the quotes. I help him, if he doesn't understand some terms, then we go over this, and then eventually just make the decision easier for him, save him stress, money, and time trying to figure out all of this on his own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important role. There's also something in the kind of the greater aesthetic space called like this one woman goes by beauty broker, but there's other people like her too, beauty consultants in a way. I mean, your role specifically within kind of hair restoration, but yeah, I think it's great because a lot of people, they don't know where to turn. They don't know, and there's a lot of marketing that everyone does from the provider standpoint, and naturally people aren't sure who they can trust, where they might get the best outcome. So I think that's great. But in general, like, you're, just correct me if I'm wrong, you're getting paid by the clients who are seeking your advice for helping them choose a clinic. Mm-hmm. Is there also a scenario where you get paid by the clinics to kind of promote them, or doctors to promote them?
Yeah, in the past, with my first hair transplant clinic, I was receiving a small fee for like people that found their website through my like YouTube video description link. So it was like a lead generation kind of commission. So I worked on this for a very, I would say, a few months, because then I realized it's not the right thing to do. I didn't really like what the clinic was turning into. Like they went from like doing like 3-4 surgeries a day into like 10 and more. And I was like, this is not what I want to become. And it was in the early stages when I didn't make anything, kind of financially out of this channel. And then I had like a quiet period where I was just making videos, sharing my story, just maybe receiving some ad revenue, but just focusing on my studies and trying to find a different career. I wasn't thinking of doing this full time. But then I realized to do these consultations that were monetized as they are right now. But over time, I'm exploring also cooperation with certain physicians. And right now, I'm kind of on the crossroad when I'm thinking of doing the consultation not as a main thing, but mainly just focusing on maybe working with a few really good clinics that I trust, that I've seen the best results with my past clients over the years, and having the commission-based model or sort of retain a revenue that they give me as a result of me working with them, only with a few of them. So this is exactly right now the point where I am, and I'm not sure which way I will go. And I already received some commissions from a few clinics, and I'm always honest with the client. If that's the type of clinic, I'm saying like, hey, this is, by the way, a clinic that will likely be my partner, and I do receive a commission. And whenever somebody is asking me, I do honestly say, I might not say how much exactly, but I say exactly that I do receive. But it's something that is very new right now, so I don't know what will sit with me, but I certainly do enjoy the custom made approach towards different clients and their needs. And I just like speaking with people one-on-one, because I work remotely, and it's something that keeps me also social. And you're seeing your patients, you are with your team, you have probably a lot of this. But for me, I go to the gym. I'm also I'm a person that likes to be alone, but I enjoy it somehow to speak about something I used to have problems with. So this is why I think it really, I would keep those consultations to maybe some minimum per month, and I would still enjoy doing them even in the future.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the key here is like the transparency, like you were saying, that, the model can change, but, your willingness to kind of explain to people that, hey, like if it does switch back more to like a commission style with the clinic, then I'm going to make it clear that these are like my clinic partners and they've been chosen carefully, but, I do get paid by them, versus like, just kind of getting paid by the clients. Because my sense is that in the space that you're in, there are people, and going back from what I can tell, even decades, that have not always been the most truthful and forthcoming about that. So they may have only been recommending a few doctors or a pool of doctors, but behind the scenes, and I know this because I was approached by some of these people to essentially collect. I see it as like a hair mafia. It's the kind of the middleman hair mafia. And, a lot of doctors, they don't want to do their own marketing. They don't know how to do their own marketing. I've chosen this kind of public route of educating, and, I'm very comfortable with it. I enjoy teaching, but it's a lot of extra work. It's like a whole second career, and people get confused. How is he operating? Well, I'm just working a lot more than the other surgeons who are not doing what I'm doing. I'm working on weekends. I'm always thinking about videos late at night. I'm texting with my YouTube team. It's a lot of extra work, but it at least gives me the freedom to reach an audience, reach people, and to not depend on folks who want a lot of money as like a monthly retainer to essentially promote me. And that's how it's been in the industry for a long, long time. And my biggest issue with these types of individuals is that they're not forthcoming about how they get paid, and they make it seem like, oh, I have this radio show, let's say, for example, and, I know everything about hair, and yet the doctors that they actually recommend are ones that pay them a lot of money, every month to be on their list. So that, to me, always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I've now, by this stage, been on the receiving end of quote-unquote punishment for not paying up. That's why it feels kind of like a mafia type of scenario, where like if you don't pay them every month, then they might say things about you that aren't the most positive and stuff like that. And that's where I think there's like the ethical way, just like for doctors, there's like the ethical way of practicing and being honest with patients about maybe for hair specifically, like what your role is in the process, for example, right? Versus not being clear with them on that. Sometimes patients will show up. Even the patient from Friday said that his second surgery showed up and he got to shake the hand of the surgeon who he booked with, who did his first surgery. But he had like sold the practice and never told the patient that in that interim he sold the practice to some younger surgeon. And then that younger surgeon actually did the surgery. Wow. And he didn't even give him a chance to reschedule or give him a heads up. And it was just the day of, and he was like, alrighty, I'm here and I paid, and so I'm going to stay, I guess. But that's what happened to him. So there's like the ethical and unethical way of practicing medicine. And then I think these general types of ethics when it comes to work applies to the stuff that you do as well, and for others in your sphere. And so I've always appreciated how forthcoming and transparent that you are with your work, and I wish that applied to everyone else in that arena, because I see more and more people offering these types of consulting sort of services, and they don't always make things clear, so I don't know.
Totally, man. No. Transparency is something that I was actually, we had the FUE conference in Madrid in September, a couple of weeks ago, where I also was lucky to speak for I would say maybe social media, I would say influencers and maybe patient advisors behalf, among other contributors in this sphere. And one thing that really all of us, we're kind of having kind of similar in the mind was the transparency for the clinics to be more transparent also with being how they're showing their before and after results and how they are communicating with the hair transplant patients. And I think this is really something very valuable to have, no matter if you're a doctor, somebody like an advisor like me. I think it's really greatly appreciated by the patients. And that's why I will stand firmly behind this being very transparent, right? Because it's so important.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think it's also like a testament to, your work being done on a high level, like the willingness to travel to clinics, to see all these clinics. I mean, you're like constantly going and, seeing places. And I don't see that same type of treatment by a lot of other patient advisors per se. So that is something else I think that really makes you stand out, not just being out there and educating people online, but actually visiting the clinics that you're talking about. There's always going to be some popular places, and then people kind of fall into the trap of like, oh, I'm just going to recommend the popular place because it seems like a safe way to do it. Whereas like you're investigating places on your own, going behind the scenes, seeing, how it's done, understanding their ways of doing things, so you could best recommend, for when it's a good fit with one of your clients.
Totally. And oftentimes, places I visit, I have higher expectations because of the reviews and because what people told me about these places, and then I get disappointed. And on the other hand, oftentimes can happen that I have lower expectations because the way they were portraying their results online, and I realize these guys have a beautiful gallery of results. They just don't know how to market themselves. And they have all that, and they're excellent, right? So that's interesting to see this also. Once you visit, they're willing to share more kind of insights with you, and then you realize that these guys are actually much better, and they could be even charging more, but they are just maybe stuck in having maybe some sticking points they cannot overcome to be seen to be better. It's interesting too.
No, yeah, for sure. Well, you're very public about your prior hair surgeries and being on the patient side. So how does that kind of influence your work today? And any regrets, anything things that you look back and you say, I wish I did it this other way, for choosing a place or for what you were requesting, or, and also we talk a lot about medical therapy, but also give me a sense of like, your own personal experience with, medical tech. Were you on it early on, or did you get on it later? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Look, I actually, as most people, I wasn't fortunate to get on the medical therapy early on, and I lost a lot of hair from like Norwood 1 to Norwood 3.5. Didn't do anything. I was in that denial phase where things kept worsening, and I was like, it's maybe I can still somehow comb it, and it's gonna look good. From certain angles until it hit maybe 3.5, and that's where you cannot get almost any hairstyle. And this is the spot where imagine it's like 2017, and I'm seeking out hair restoration because it went too far. I tried minoxidil a year prior to that, but it didn't do much. So I was like, okay, I tried this. Finasteride, I was very skeptical to take because back then there was very little education on this, like from videos like yours or mine nowadays, and there were just some scary things on forums. So I avoided that naturally, and I got my first hair transplant in 2017. And what annoyed me was that there was nobody kind of doing this timeline from the day one until like 12 months. Many guys, funny enough, they started for a month, 2, 3, and they stopped. They disappeared. And I was like, where are the updates, right? So I was like, okay, when I do a hair transplant, I will document this every month so for people can see. So that's what I decided to do without any expectations and just see where it goes. And then after a couple of months, really, I got overwhelmingly positive comments from people, like how it helps them with, surviving the shock loss phase, how to deal with this. They can see, how I do it. And they had so many questions and positive comments, how it inspires them and kind of inspires them to do their transformations. And it really kind of opened my mind to like how many people actually suffer from this problem that I had. And then I started to take it more seriously and try to be more selective what I say, what I don't say. And especially when I reached maybe around 10,000 subscribers, I realized, okay, there is something of interest from the people's side, and that kind of made me go from this my story, my hair loss, my hair transplant type of content to like how-to content, to structure the information so the people can understand better how to treat hair loss, what works, what doesn't, bring some studies as reference points when I talk about finasteride, minoxidil and stuff, to show people what they can expect. The same thing about what pitfalls to avoid with hair transplants and so on. And this is when I got also a sense of responsibility, things I should, talk about and how to portray them. And this kind of influenced my career as well, and I decided to do it full time. And the first year or two I was just working normally, just doing this on the side. I was in fact doing consultations already, but the first maybe 50, 60 ones were like for free. I was just chatting with people like, hey, what are your issues? Like, how can I help you? Like, I was just figuring out things. Eventually, I started also treating my hair loss with my hair transplants, showing this to people. They're still interested in my protocol and stuff that I do for my hair. So currently I do a low-dose finasteride, which is like a microdosed version. And I'm finding right now that my side effects or sensitivity to side effects is a bit higher in my 30s compared to in my 20s. In my 20s, I was taking finasteride, no problem, no issues. But now that I'm 33, I'm realizing that taking 1 milligram finasteride for a prolonged periods of time, like months, maybe a year, I start feeling a little bit like the libido is reduced, but not like initially and then it goes away, like transient side effect type of thing, not that. But it's kind of lasting, and it's not bad. I mean, it's fine. You can get used to it, but it's a big difference still when I stop. And then also, and then we had a discussion with my girlfriend, and we realized that, it's good to be maybe low dose for 6 months, and then the next 6 months maybe topical. And this is kind of what I'm doing right now, and I'm also closely monitoring my hair, how it's responding to this. Recently, I added topical anti-androgen that has been working for me in the past, funny enough. I don't want to promote it here overly. I don't think people should start with it. It's called RU58841. It's right now we have pyrolutamide that will replace it, I think, because it's more safe. There are studies on it, two randomized placebo-controlled trials in China and the US already, so it's much safer. And I will likely switch to it as well, but I just didn't like their pump mechanism. It's like they sell it in Hong Kong from a company called Koshine, and I might switch to it, we'll see, but this thing works for me, talking about the RU, and this is what I'm using currently. And right now, I think it's stable. I like my head of hair. It's a little bit see-through when the sun kind of shines on it, but I'm totally fine with it. And that's pretty much where I am.
No minoxidil?
No minoxidil. I use oral minoxidil 1 milligram or 1.25 for 10 months, and I had side effects in the beginning, but I kept going and they stopped eventually. But then after 9 to 10 months, I start getting some side effects back. So I had trouble falling asleep whenever I used it at night. Like not at night, but kind of in the afternoon hours. And then I also had some weird palpitation or pressure in the rib cage area, like in the left side, and I just it didn't feel right. And my parents are also on like some blood pressure meds, so these types of things are in the family, so I didn't want to kind of mess with that. And that's the reason why I stopped with oral, and I'm only on the kind of hair stabilization meds.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think our bodies are like a laboratory. They're complex, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. I'm talking offline about different blood tests. Some people ask, what blood test should I get to determine the dosage of something? It's very difficult that we don't have those types of direct, correlation blood tests to how well you'll do on a certain medication at a certain dose for hair, unfortunately. Maybe one day, I don't know. But until you try it in your system to see how you react and monitor it and see, you won't know. And that's why I think it's important. I mean, you have the knowledge to do a lot of dose adjustments yourself, but for people who they're not very experienced, they don't know, it's good for them to be under the care of a physician who can monitor and adjust it. And so that's I think and we don't really run into any major problems. We definitely stop one or the other medication for people if the side effects persist and can be problematic even at low dosages. But it's like people just need to try. They just need to try, and sometimes they're just so afraid to try any of them. So that's a big part of it.
What's new with the Feel Confident line? I see it's looking a bit different than last time. It's not wide anymore. What happened here? It's looking very slick and smooth.
Yeah, as a few years ago we started the Feel Confident line. It was a way to kind of expand reach to different people who, maybe were not coming in for surgeries. We realized we're not for everyone for different reasons. And just like, no surgeon is going to be the right fit for everyone. But people wanted to interact, and they wanted to, kind of experience us through more ways than just videos, potentially. So I started this line. It was initially a scar gel, and the finasteride minoxidil that we made available for like patients in the U.S. because logistically it's difficult to prescribe in other countries. So we still have that going. About a year and a half ago, we launched cosmetic products beyond the scar gel, and some of them were more skincare focused. And then, of course, we had our hair care line. So I worked with a pretty famous formulator. He works for like very big hair care companies, so still works for them. So I don't reveal his name, but he has like 40 plus years of experience in formulating specifically hair care products, and he's like my mother-in-law's first cousin. So once I realized I had that connection, and we had an audience online, we're like, we have to make something work. So I worked with him, hand in hand. Of course, I don't know how to make a shampoo myself. So, with his... It
was destiny.
Yeah, with his background and understanding on my end, like what can go into a shampoo to be at least some natural, we know it's not a replacement for finasteride, but some natural DHT blockers, some anti-inflammatory stuff. Like, we put that in, and overall the reception was great. There was a couple of things with the type of bottles we chose and the dispensing mechanism, and they were getting shipped out, and some were leaking, and it was a lot of growing pains with that. The warehouse we used was not great initially. So all of that is improved, but we decided to kind of level up even more, change the packaging completely, change the way it all kind of looked and felt and dispensed. And we have a scalp serum coming out at the end of the year. So soon we're going to be transitioning to this type of packaging. Still great formulas that people seem to really enjoy. And we're also running some clinical studies on our products, which is also a challenging thing to do. Initially, I wanted to do it myself, but that kind of has some conflict of interest. So we found a company that is in Italy that does these kinds of clinical trials. And we actually have an active study now for our shampoo and conditioner. Again, not meant to replace the tried and true medications, but as a supplement. I mean, everyone has to use some sort of shampoo. So it's a great option for, basic kind of hair care. Yeah, it has, of course, more of like a prevention of kind of further loss, kind of underpinnings, if you will. But again, it's just an aid. It's just a supplement. It's not to replace the medications. But yeah, people have enjoyed it. We're on Amazon now. And just excited for what the future holds for the brand. And, it's like I've got the practice, got the YouTube channel, and we have the Feel Confident line to continue to share with people.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, looks exciting. The future looks great. And wish you all the best with this. And
give me a sense of what you think hair transplant clinics are not doing well enough on the whole. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but like, what do you see across the board that you think can really be improved in the industry from like a consumer standpoint?
Certainly. There is plenty of room for improvements. People who watch my videos, they know that I'm a big proponent of choosing a boutique type of practice with high physician involvement, where there is few patients being accepted on a daily basis. So it's one patient per doctor per day type of thing. So let's assume most clinics are already like that, which of course they're not. And if you are the clinic that is not like that, you could definitely improve by becoming this, to be perceived as high quality by educated patients. So what can you improve easily? I would say consultation. It doesn't cost you buying any extra fancy equipment or investing into AI stuff or something like that. So it's really just you spending more time on a consultation with a patient. It shows that you want to make it right and not just barely designing the hairline and then disappearing as it's going on in many Turkish clinics. It's not just the design, right? It's like discussing the treatments, the planning. What if then we do this or that? If it doesn't work as good, what if? And then, these types of discussions, the planning of the donor area, especially if you have like a client with limited donor mega session, you need to spend so much more time on like planning, outlining the safe donor zone, and maybe the donor zone will not be as safe in 10 years, so it will maybe change and shrink. So you got to plan for this and explain the client, right? So I think the consultation quality can definitely improve, because if it stays very superficial and basic for like a minute or two, and sometimes if it's not even done by the physician, what happens? The patients get hair transplants that they will regret, to put it simply, that their donor will look depleted too soon, they waste too many grafts too quickly, and they get hair transplants at the wrong time, and things like these, improper designs, and so on. So that's one important thing that could be improved. Something that they can definitely also control is maybe looking out like who is good and who is not, and just looking up to the best guys and see how you can learn from them. Visit conferences regularly, like what you're doing, because then you get so much more of the up-to-date stuff, like what's now the thing in the hair restoration, what's very optimal, it's efficient, and so on. And you can learn quickly, instead of being the guy who is laid back and he's getting the money somewhere, isolated, and he doesn't care to improve his quality. And I think that's bad. And I think you're not giving the patient your best self, and your motivation should be to give your best self, your best skill, and you do him the service by improving your skill as well constantly. Even if you are older and there are maybe younger guys who are doing something better, no need to feel bad about this. Like, accept it and get back on this track too, and improve your skill. I think that's fantastic. And then maybe things that are AI related could be utilized, but not just use AI in your practice for the sake of using AI, but I think when doing the mega sessions, AI-powered tools can be useful to monitor the donor, kind of scan it thoroughly by limited donor supply candidates, high Norwoods to plan, and kind of make the best use of every single follicle, kind of with numbers and mathematics. So kind of the patient gets the most of that donor, right? So it's going to be planned properly, because in these cases you need to put a lot of emphasis on proper planning, and AI certainly could help that, identify the thick grafts, the thinner ones, and check maybe hair per graft ratios to see what coverage effect that donor will give, and things like these that can be also nice to see for the patient, what he can expect, because these patients usually can have mismanaged expectations because they have little donor and they have baldness and they think they can get like Brad Pitt's hairline, right? And it's not the case. So I think these types of things could be definitely done.
All great points. On the topic of these 3D AI tools for simulated results, I had one of these systems in my clinic for a number of months, and we tried it, and I feel like there is still a lot of room for improvement. And it was to the point where I felt like, when you saw the way that the donor area would deplete after like X number of grafts, I felt like that was an over exaggeration of what it actually looks like when it's done right. And so I didn't want, to scare my patients. And then when I saw the recipient areas and sometimes the density that it was building, I knew that wasn't always going to be the most accurate, because it also depends on lighting and how the directionality of the hair is and how it falls and the caliber. And a lot of these things, the systems are not complicated enough or sophisticated enough to include. So we actually ended up giving away our 3D system. I feel like a lot of surgeons, they get the latest machinery to kind of market and to say, just like that robotic system that we know has a lot of deficiencies. But, people buy these things and then use it for marketing. I don't think that's the best way to market a clinic, especially for long-term success. But it works for some. Some people that's their way. They just jump on the latest tech and say, "Oh, I got the new thing." Now there's the Alma TED and the luminous Folix. These things that zap the scalp and are supposed to stimulate it. But we've all seen the results. Maybe not the most impressive, and I'm very slow to jump on the latest tech. And I feel like if we're gonna, you and I were talking about, how I have been thinking about building some real tech, but patient-centric, not just to build something just to have it or to buy something just to say I have it, but something that will truly kind of improve the experience for the patient, improve the surgery, truly improve it, and not just in my hands, but ideally in anyone's hands who gets to use it. So that's my idea of technological innovation, not just for the sake of just saying we have something new. Going back to an earlier point, they were talking about how some clinics maybe are not like the boutique clinics, right? And at least what I've seen in New York City is that some venture capital companies have kind of gotten to, and even there are some, we know some of the big names of the chain companies. I won't mention them here, but we know what they are. And they're not inherently a problem, but it's just that you don't always get the most personalized attention. You don't always know who your doctor will be. But some of these venture capital companies have started hair transplant clinics in the city. And there were 2 in the past 5 years that opened and closed within about a year. And they find doctors who are, decent transplant surgeons who work there part-time, and, they try to kind of grow the business. But, people are not dumb, on the whole, and they're getting smarter and smarter. And when they're in New York City and they're trying to charge prices that might, maybe compete with, let's say, some places in Turkey, it's not a sustainable model. And so instead of trying to come at it from a very high standard perspective, and offer exceptional service and really exceptional results, they're just trying to play the financial game. And then to even get people in the door, they go on Google, kind of old school Google ads. And it's very expensive to get those clicks. So they sponsor all types of stuff. And then, the money essentially runs dry. And, people stop coming. They haven't even spent enough time to generate great results to show on their website. So that's been the fate of a few of these places, these generic type places that have sprung up. So surely that's not the best model forward. But from my perspective, being that boutique clinic, it's very difficult to, first of all, have the right training to be able to start doing this on a regular basis, and to get enough patients in the door to kind of scale it and have it be like a steady flow, and to get enough cases under your belt to then have a gallery to show people. It's a lot of effort, and people aren't always willing to kind of do that, especially when they have, if they're well-trained surgeons, they have other options. And if they don't have like a specific, interest in hair, they might not go fully down that route. And that's why I think there aren't as many like boutique places, especially in higher cost areas. At least that's the way I see it. Training's hard to come by. It's expensive to start and run your own clinic and to keep it like sustainable. Because Google ads are not sustainable.
And the expensive ones, or the boutique ones in some countries, can be then also booked for too long because they are very popular, and then some people don't have time, and then they choose some. Then oftentimes it's the case. People are short on time, and they just want to do it now. And I say to them, like, it's never the best idea. And it's hard in that case, to find the right fit in a week or a month. And that's what I say people, like, if you consider a hair transplant for my service, like, book it 6 months in advance, or 12 ideally. Because if you want like the last minute thing, I can advise you. I can oftentimes tell you, don't do this because they're already, in a rush, and they're deciding from the emotional kind of brain part instead of the logical and rational, what I usually praise in my videos. And this is what I don't like, and it also, is caused by this information overflow that causes the decision paralysis, causes the cognitive kind of stall, and they don't know what to do and what to believe in, what's true and what not. So they will go into that emotional decision making, which is based on, okay, where do most people go? Turkey. Turkey is like the mecca of hair restoration. Where do the football players and soccer players go, and celebrities? And they go to these places. And oftentimes we have seen with many Instagram celebrities and influencers, like, it was really not the right choice. And people just copy that and hope that it will be great. And sometimes if it's great for the influencers, it's because he can also get a better treat at that clinic. Because if the clinic has different teams, they oftentimes have 5, 10 different teams, certainly they might get the best treat, and you, when you come there as the usual guy, it will not be the same, right? So this is also the danger, and people just need to watch out for that as well.
And there's also this concept of kind of like ghost doctors, I think they call them, where you sign up with one head surgeon because that's who you see online, and you think that he's done every single transplant that maybe is in the gallery or on their Instagram, and then you show up and all of a sudden maybe you met that person there, maybe not, and then you're getting some other team that's treating you. So it's not just the technicians, but the actual surgeon responsible might be someone totally different who's not even featured on the website. Some people, they come to me and they're so scared of that they'll in consultation ask me like, are you going to be the doctor like for my case? And I'm like, I always get confused by that because I'm the only doctor at my clinic. It's my clinic. But I understand where the kind of the fear comes from, because a lot of places, that's how they work, including the gentleman I mentioned who had the surgery with me last week, for his procedure before the one that I did. And he was in the States. He shows up and it's some other doctor taking over, and he was not told. So it can really happen anywhere. That's what we were talking earlier about, U.S. versus Turkey. It's not about a country. It's just about choosing a doctor that's going to be responsible for you and actually like see it through and make sure you have a great result. And if you don't have a great result, you can at least come back to them and kind of hold them, if you want to call it, responsible, and see what they can offer you to remedy it. Listen, that's part of the job. Sometimes it's like expected secondary surgeries that we're doing, like if I'm starting with the frontal half and then we're doing the crown, as a secondary procedure a year later, and we knew that was going to happen. Other times, the density that they got was maybe just not exactly what they were hoping for, in which case we have to do some more into that initial zone, and that's okay. If the initial work was done right and we're just building on something good. The problem is, when you're doing secondary procedures on, cases that were done in places where it was substandard and a lot of things are off, and then even just putting more grafts into the area correctly doesn't always make it look much better. So then, there's a lot of information coming out online from people like us, from a lot of other folks, people who don't know too much about the industry but are, voicing their opinions, people who are very new to the industry and don't see all the, the complexities of it. How do we combat some of this misinformation online, especially in the day, in the day of AI, with like the Sora that just came out, Sora 2, whatever, all types of different visuals you can animate, and you can imagine people be faking their before and afters, and even creating videos where it looks like they're doing surgery and maybe they've never done a surgery, or it's not really them doing it, or they're putting their face on someone doing the surgery. I mean, it's just like so many potential problems here, right? So how do people figure out what to trust and who to listen to?
I think, look, we need to, first of all, promote critical thinking. So let me just put it simply and then unpack. So I say in many of my videos, like that the general hair transplant research takes maybe 100 hours to do, to be kind of in the happening of that. Right now with AI, maybe it's going to be even slightly more. People think it's going to be less because AI will save you a lot of time. But I would say I would take more time now, because I would kind of spend more time on a particular clinic that I like and just follow it up for a couple of months, what type of work they're putting out, what type of, what the results are looking like on a consistent basis, to get a picture of the quality. And with that, I think you will get many of the variables kind of out of the questions that may be like something faked, something that is not looking, so maybe AI generated. But if you decide in a rush hour, in a heartbeat, like this AI thing will definitely deceive you. But if you give it more time and you allow yourself to look at the close-ups, study the photos from a very, very detailed distance, it's hard in my opinion, for AI to fake this. But anything that is very far and could be definitely maybe enhanced or manipulated. So you got to watch out for that. But I think our channels are doing a fairly good job at showing, what's possible, what's a risk with this AI. And I was even, I did a video earlier this year about AI trying to give me like the top clinics in Turkey. And I was even interacting with it as a potential hair transplant patient, and it gave me some feedback. And it was certainly, I liked that it was relatively unbiased and kind of impartial, and it gave you like a really good pros and cons of hair restoration. It gives you like the ideal hair treatments. It starts with finasteride, minoxidil, like the meat and potatoes, and it doesn't try to deceive you with any other things. But it certainly had some flaws, and oftentimes used resources that you and me would probably consider deceiving or not, like kind of misinformed resources as well. And this is the point where people need to watch out for. And also you need to understand that once that AI can also help consumers, but also can get in the hands of the bad guys, marketing agencies and other online marketers that just smell the money and just latch onto the clinic and try to build it up quickly, and just AI helps them run their ads 10 times faster and more efficiently, and create and test the ads, split test and all that stuff in much shorter time, so they can then start with the deception faster and more efficiently, right? So this is also the problem. So people need to watch out for, and I think people definitely need to take a step back and just don't do the rush decision making in here, because it's gonna be tricky. It's a Russian roulette. You might get into good clinic, even if it's a high volume of patients type of practice, but at the same time it may be a total disaster. So whether it's a clinic that portrays a misinformation because there is an agency behind it that's creating this type of content, oftentimes the clinic doesn't even know, and there is an ad that the marketing agency came with. It's not even approved by the clinic's doctor, or whether it's an influencer paid by the clinic saying certain stuff that it's untrue because the clinic gives him something in return. Patients need to see through it and able to think critically, and at the end of the day decide for themselves, which I think again our channels are kind of promoting, and don't try to push any or the other narrative. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I would wrap it up.
Yeah, excellent points. I just wanted to echo the one message that you gave about how, some people come into hair surgery wanting it like as an emergency, like they're losing hair, and they think that if they don't get it now, then that's going to be their only opportunity, or they see it as like saving their hair. That's a big misconception that I see quite often, and I tell them, no, there's other ways that we stabilize your hair loss, and then we come in and we can do a hair transplant, if they're a candidate, to make things even better. But don't look to hair surgery as some sort of emergency treatment. And they sometimes see it as like a preventative. I hear that a lot actually amongst patients, like, oh, I'm going to get this preventative hair transplant. I'm like, no, there's nothing preventative about a hair transplant. Actually, any aesthetics procedure, the only thing you can maybe argue, like Botox can be slightly preventative from frown lines or whatever. But, every other treatment that I know of is like sort of treating like a known issue or a perceived issue. And honestly, I see it as sometimes a red flag when a patient is like, I got to get it done. You have any room next week? And I'm like, no, we don't do things like that unless there's like a cancellation, but you have to take a date into the future, and then you can be on a wait list if something, someone reschedules. But this kind of urgent thing, I need it fixed right away, I always a bit more cautious around those folks.
You got to be picky of those clients, because these are the ones that could be problematic because they are coming from a unsteady, maybe mental also state of mind that is then can get some troubles later.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for sitting with me again, and always learning a lot from you and your videos, and they inspire me online. And keep doing what you're doing, and I always appreciate the full transparency and honest approach that you bring. And I'm excited for what the future holds for you, and looking forward to some collaborations, I'm sure, in the future. So thanks again.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity being here, and was great chatting up, and also getting your brain on many of the topics that I needed some more clarity on too. So yeah, great chat, and thank you.